Hey nerds, Shane here. Time to sit back, relax, and listen to the Deathlocker podcast brought to you by Nerdlocker. Today I'm here with Mike Kitchen and Frank the Tank Maresca.
That's right. You got it right. Excellent.
So we're actually recording this, I don't know, I think it's the first right after Easter. This is either going to be episode 3 or 4. We're trying to get a little bit ahead of the power curve. Episode 2 got delayed a little bit, so we're trying to fix that. Unfortunately, Jimmy and Aaron Rainbolt can't be here today. They're doing something that's way more important, apparently. And I know that was pretty pointed, wasn't it? Way more important. Fuck them. So I got Mike and Frank here. We're going to talk a little bit about some Stephen King. We're going to talk about the Leprechaun trailer that came out a couple weeks ago. And then we're going to talk about going to horror conventions. You know, what it's like, meeting people, what to bring with you, some bags of tricks, how not to get raped, all that good stuff.
Yeah, because that happens all the time.
I'm usually up for the raping though.
Are you the raping or the rapee?
I'm the rapee. Yeah,
You hit the glory holes and just kind of sit back and relax.
I make the glory holes, exactly. I hang out. I don't even go to the con. I just hang out in the men's bathroom all day.
Is that your cosplay costume?
And on the way to the con, I hit up every rest stop along the way and hit those too. So, it keeps me pretty busy.
GloryCon 2018?
That's actually how I met Mike. I was actually at New York Comic Con 2 years ago, right, Mike?
Yeah, that was a fun one. Yeah, that was insane. I had never been to New York Comic Con. That was nuts. But yeah.
I spent half that convention on a line waiting for a poster for Shane.
Oh, you're your favorite artist, right?
Oh yeah, I don't even mention his name.
I mean, I know you love floating heads.
I do. Floating heads and coloring books. That's my thing.
Where was it? Hero Complex or not? Hero Bottleneck?
It was the fucking Stout Age of Ultron.
Oh, that was last year,
2 years
wasn't
ago.
it?
Yep.
2 years ago, I think. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Was it 2 years ago?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Waited 2 hours
it was
in line
well
for that
worth it,
fucking
though.
thing?
That sucks.
Okay, so one of the things I want to talk about is Stephen King. We talked about Stephen King a little bit in episode 1 with Jimmy and Aaron, and they were both 100% on board with all of this remake crap. I personally thought that we were kind of getting to where things were, I think late 80s to mid 90s, where anybody with $1 could basically put out whatever Stephen King trash they wanted to put out. Langoliers, Lawnmower Man, was the fucking Sleepwalkers. And since we had that conversation, I think there's been 3 or 4 projects released,
Right.
or 3 or 4 projects talked about. You have The Stand, which they just talked about turning into CBS wants to turn it into like a 10-hour miniseries. They talked about Tommyknockers, which was I always thought it was one of his weakest books. I mean, it's an okay read, but Stephen King and aliens just are not my personal thing.
Yeah.
And there was another one, wasn't there, Frank?
Well, I know there's a couple of television shows that are being worked on, but another movie? No, not off the top of my head, I don't know.
So the TV shows, you got that Castle Rock thing with Hulu, right?
Yes, and that was because they did the first one. They did 11/22/63, and then they did the Bill Hodges books. The what was it? The Mr. Mercedes.
Did they do them all, or did they just do Mr. Mercedes? I could never actually get through it.
Oh, really? I thought it was excellent. I thought those books were excellent.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe part of it was I was excited about the dude who got squished with his car, was supposed to play the main guy.
Yes.
And they just grabbed some random actor who I gave 2 fucks about to play him.
Oh, I know what they're working on. They're doing Doctor Sleep, the sequel to The Shining.
Yeah, I mean, again...
They're doing that? I didn't even know they were doing that.
Yeah, it was about a month ago, I
Yes.
think it was announced, no? Now, is that going to be a direct sequel to the book, or is it going to be kind of a spiritual sequel to the movie with Nicholson?
I doubt that. I mean, it's well documented that he hated that film, even though we know that all horror fans love that film. It strayed so far from the book that he just didn't like it. He didn't like what Stanley Kubrick was doing with the film. I know they did a different interpretation with the guy from Wings, and I thought it was terrible, but it was closer to the book.
He wrote the teleplay for the one for the Wings, right?
Yes, he was directly involved with that one. So
Steven Weber, if I'm right.
Yeah.
yes, who I'll be meeting next month.
Oh, really? Cool.
Yeah,
Where are you gonna see him at?
I'm going to Chiller in Parsippany.
Oh, okay.
So it's a really good lineup. So I'm looking forward to that one.
Are you going to tell him how much you don't like The Shining?
No, I tend to stay away from the negative.
I mean, you're not going to walk up there and be, hey, Steven, fucking loved you in Wings. I loved you in the Psych episode you did, but the fucking Shining, man. Why?
I loved you in iZombie, and I love you in Dracula Dead and Loving It. Shining, not so much.
Not so much. By the way, will you sign my Shining poster?
Please.
Absolutely not.
If you do, I'll give you a blowjob in the bathroom.
I'm on it.
That's my line. Come on.
I mean, so what do you guys think about this whole, Stephen King's popular trend?
I mean, is that a new thing, really?
Well, I mean, he's always had there's always been a sustainability in his popularity, but as far as his marketability in context to movies has been kind of sketchy.
Stephen King has done so many great things. I mean, besides just horror. I mean, you got Green Mile. You got one of my favorites, Shawshank.
Stand By Me.
Stand By Me. Yeah. I mean, he just is a great writer. I mean, and some of his movies aren't interpreted well into film, and I think that some of them shouldn't be portrayed or try to be interpreted into film because I just don't think they play well. I think he leaves a lot more open for the reader, for their imagination to go somewhere, and some of it just isn't interpreted well into film.
But see, to me, therein kind of lies the problem. Because I've read on several occasions where King has said that he really doesn't care how good or bad the movies are, because if somebody wants to go back to the core source material, they can just go back to the book and have the experience through the book. So I don't want to say he gives two fucks on how the movies come out, but I just don't think he really has much of a vested interest.
A bad movie doesn't change your opinion of the book, is basically what he says.
That's true.
And I know he's held off a long time on letting anyone go near his baby, the gunslinger. And then they finally do it, and it was horrendous. It was my favorite book of all time, and it was just a terrible thing. So, you win some, you lose some. We saw it do very well, and again, although it was kind of different from the book and kind of different from the original television show, I thought it was excellent. I thought it was done well, and I'm hoping that the second part is going to be just as good.
See, I don't know, and Jimmy and I talked a little bit about this as far as it being good. I like it as a horror movie, but I'm having a hard time defining whether or not I like this adaptation. A lot of it is they did so many different changes to it,
right,
that would affect the second half. I don't know how that's going to play out. So I kind of feel like I'm holding back on my, honest assessment of the new It movies until I see, how they change things around. Because there's just characters and stuff in the first movie that were total changes in the book.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that just is kind of driving me a little, wonky. And then seeing that I think for the Tommyknockers, it's either the same writers or producers of It are doing Tommyknockers. And I'm like, Tommyknockers was not that fucking good to begin with. And now we're going to let these guys fucking R-rated up. I mean, unless Tracy Lords comes back and walks around fucking topless, I'm kind of like, why bother?
I mean, you had to like this version of it better than the original, no?
It depends. I liked the childhood part of the original version better than the new one. And part of that, I think they just fleshed out the kids a little bit better. And I think Tim Curry made a better Pennywise. And I know some of that is just, I'm not a big fan of CGI. And there was just a lot of, not bad, but mid-grade level CGI.
The dancing clown scene, that was one for me that really kind of threw me for a loop. I mean,
dumb.
It looked so bad. It almost looked like they superimposed his head. I don't know if it was supposed to look like that, but that's exactly what it looked like. It almost looked fake. When my son showed me it, I was like, is that real? He's like, yeah, but it looked so bad. It wasn't done well. You know what I mean?
It looked legit like a fucking Facebook meme.
But I've noticed too with a lot of movies, it seems like CGI is almost getting worse. Like I go back to like Jurassic Park and you look at that movie and the CGI in that movie is amazing. And you look at some of the movies that have come out now and it almost looks cartoonish, like the new Wonder Woman. I did not like that movie. The movie was well written and everything, but I mean, the CGI just blew it for me. It was way too cartoony. It doesn't look real anymore. I mean, I don't know what they're doing that's different, but the CGI now, they should just go back to old makeup and regular effects like the old days. I mean, look at American Werewolf in London. I mean, that is one of the best transformations in any horror film, and that was all done through makeup, no CGI, no nothing, and it still holds up to this day.
Yeah, but are there people like that anymore that are even doing this? I mean, the Rick Bakers and the Tom Savinis. I mean, I know they're still working, and you got the guys who work on The Walking Dead and stuff, and they're using more practical than CGI. So I mean, it's not that it's going away, but for these films, I think when you have so much, this is only so much you can do with makeup. And I think that if they have a lot of fantastic things going on, that they got to dip into that CGI a little more than they should. But I mean, if done well, it does work sometimes. I mean, we've seen that in the Solo movie. I thought that the Princess Leia from Rogue One was phenomenal.
Did you guys, speaking of Star Wars, didn't they say Meryl Streep is supposed to take over that role or something?
I heard something about that.
Yeah, I will kill someone.
I will
kill someone.
I don't know. I Star Wars is something else. I mean, I'm glad I don't have an affinity for Star Wars. I'm a passive fan of Star Wars. I like Star Wars, but
I'm not a huge Star Wars person either. My son is, but it skipped me for some reason. Like I never was huge Star Wars, Star Trek, none of that.
I think the big thing with her is what they did that Postcards from the Edge movie together, and she played her mother or some shit in that fucking movie. So having her take over the role, Leia, is going to be some sort of fucking homage to Carrie Fisher. But to kind of backtrack a little bit, something I read a while back was we're to the point on special effects where the practical actually costs more to do than the CGI. Because the CGI, the programming is so easy nowadays that, a lot of times on your cell phones, you can create an artificial reality environment that looks better than, CGI that was done, say, for the Lawnmower Man, back in 92, 93.
Right.
So, I mean, with that technology being so readily available, I think that's what's giving us the cheaper CGI. And also, what's fashionable right now is the fucking jump scare. You look at your Conjuring movies, you look at your Insidious movies, all that Blumhouse stuff and the Ghost House crap from Sam Raimi's. They're decent movies. They're fun movies, but really they rely on the jump scare. And it was one that was heavy with the jump scare.
The whole jump scare thing, if it's done well, like I was talking to Rooker at Horror Hound, and we were talking about Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. And what I was telling him about that movie is so scary, but it's not because you see anything. It's just you're imagining what's going. They don't show much in that movie, and he just portrays Henry Lee Lucas so well in that film, and he's just a scary character in that movie, And sometimes I think that's the best thing, is leaving it to the imagination. You don't have to show everything. You don't have to be in your face.
Oh, yeah. I mean, a lot of the older horror flicks, Hills Have Eyes, Last House on the Left, even your original slasher ones, there was a lot more left to the imagination. You didn't see the pitchfork go through. You would see the pitchfork go through the mattress and drip the blood, so you knew what happened. So you had so much to your imagination.
Right.
But, now...
Original Halloween.
Yeah, I mean, now we're just about the more gore, the better. Everything's all desensitized. You're kind of like, okay. Okay, so at some point, we're going to try to do a segue into this, crap fest, since we were talking about bad makeup. So if any of you guys haven't seen it, I'm going to play the Leprechaun Returns trailer on Sci-Fi. Frank hasn't seen this yet or heard it yet, so he can watch it on his own. He's really not missing much to watch it, but it's pretty fucking bad. So we're going to give you some audio, and then we're going to get your reaction. Okay, so you ready for this?
Yes, go ahead.
I've been gone quite a while. What a tale before. My fingers are itching. I'm killing for more. Why, let's try a luck and bet on me gold. If it lands on tails, I'll do as me told. But heads, I'll start a new killing spree. Oh, what a lovely surprise. Shall we try best 2 out of 3?
So that is Leprechaun Returns on the Sci-Fi Channel, 2019.
Right up there with Sharknado.
Hey. So...
Aren't they on number? They're on number 8,
Yeah.
I think, aren't they, for Sharknado?
Yeah, I think the last one's in production or some shit. Fucking All I know is that they pay Tara Reid and mascara and fucking wine coolers. So
Well, somebody's watching them, right? Or else they wouldn't keep
Gee.
making them.
yeah, well, strangely enough, future guest of the show is a producer for I think it was Sharknado 4.
Really?
Yeah. Well, he's in one of our little poster groups, and for the 4 people out there listening to us, that's kind of how we all know each other, is from poster groups online. So, Leprechaun. What are your first impressions? Leprechaun Returns. Good thing, bad thing.
I don't know. I mean, I think the original. I mean, I didn't enjoy it. It's not my thing. I've seen it. So a follow up to it. I mean, wasn't there already were sequels to the original? Weren't there a couple, 2 or 3?
Yeah, there was the original Leprechaun that played theatrically. Leprechaun 2 was theatrically. Leprechaun 3, I think, was a direct to video. That was the Leprechaun Goes to Vegas. Then we, which Leprechaun 3 is fucking awesome. I don't care what you say. You got to watch Leprechaun 3 because that's kind of like, Nightmare on Elm Street 3. That's where it became like extra jokey. Leprechaun 3. Then they jumped the shark and they did Leprechaun in Space because sure, why the fuck not?
Because don't all serial killers have to go to space? That's
Leprechaun in the Hood, then.
Yeah, so then they did a soft reboot with Leprechaun in the Hood, starring Coolio.
That was awesome.
And then they did a sequel to Leprechaun in the Hood, Leprechaun Back to the Hood. But at that point, they dumped Warwick Davis, and the WWE got the rights to Leprechaun. WWE, WWF, whatever the fuck. And they had Hornswoggle. So if you guys follow wrestling, he was this little wrestling dude who wrestled with, I think his name was like Finn or some shit. And yeah, they made him up to look like Leprechaun. So basically it was, how dude looked really bad in his makeup for Jackie Earl Haley for the Nightmare on Elm Street remake?
Oh, that terrible film, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was that bad, and it did some weird, tried to make it hyper realistic, hardcore horror, and they turned into little fucking fuzzballs like critters or some fucking shit.
So is Warwick Davis coming back for this one?
No, it's some motherfucker. It sounds like a little kid doing like an adult's voice, fucking Billy West or someone like that, fucking Futurama actor. And it supposedly is forgetting Leprechauns. It's pulling a Halloween where it's forgetting Leprechaun 2, 3, 4, 5 in space, and it's going to be a direct sequel to Leprechaun 1.
All right. Well, I mean, if people are watching all those other movies, I guess this can't be that bad.
Well, I mean, it's on Sci-Fi, and Sci-Fi is known for quality.
And Sci-Fi.
Yeah, I mean, they've given us the fucking Tremors franchise, which I don't know if you caught the newest one, Jamie Kennedy back for another run on Tremors.
I met him. I thought he was a nice guy. He wasn't drunk.
He just seems like the kind of dude who would be drunk all the time. I mean, he just looks like he's been living in a bottle of Jack Daniels.
Well, he looked that way, but
let's be realistic. The he's a very niche actor. I mean,
oh yeah.
What the fuck is I've never, like you get some actors who got their little shtick, but then they do something and you're like, oh, well, this fucker can actually act. I've never seen Jamie Kennedy like actually fucking act.
He doesn't act out of that. No.
Kind of like a Pauly Shore type of thing.
The Weasel.
Yeah. Speaking of, what happened to Pauly Shore? Is he still around?
Tremors 7 starring Pauly Shore and Jamie Kennedy. The special guest star Tara Reid.
Well, when's the Leprechaun coming out? I will watch it.
So, are you committing yourself to doing a live commentary for Deathlocker?
I'll do a review after the fact.
I'm hearing commentary.
That would be difficult to do.
It is coming out in a year. The only thing that they've filmed is this fucking trailer. Apparently.
It's coming out in a year?
I'm committing something a year from now.
Sci-Fi did a
they want to get the hype going.
Sci-Fi did a Leprechaun marathon for St. Patrick's Day.
Okay.
And they did Leprechaun 1, 2, 3, The Hood, and Back to the Hood. And at the end of the fucking marathon, they dropped their trailer for Leprechaun Returns.
Put me down on your calendar. I'm down. A year from now, who knows where I'll be. But
I think it would sound great. I mean,
maybe they'll bring back what's his name from Pee-wee's Big Adventure, the Francis. Remember, he was in the first one.
Dude, they're gonna hire some whatever actress or actors on the current popular freeform show. Some fucking 16-year-old New Mutant, X-Men, CW.
If it's sci-fi, they'll probably have Tara Reid.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said. Have you seen her like recently in
Oh
real person?
Jesus, yeah.
I met her at 2 conventions ago as well.
So how'd that go?
They look a lot different,
I remember seeing her. I think it was last year's Texas Frightmare, and I'm like, who the fuck let Skeletor in?
Dude, she's way jacked up.
Dude, she's got like bony face. Like, I mean, there's no TNA going on, dude. It's like a fucking eye.
Well, it's just crazy. Like, you would think after a while these plastic surgeons, well, I guess they're not going to say anything because they're getting paid to do it, but you think they'd be like, there's nothing left to do to your face. You're just jacking it up more and more. You know what I mean?
Just
Like,
stop.
geez. Yeah, just come on.
Well, it's her whole fucking body, man. I mean, she's all fucking anorexic, and
Yeah.
I wanted to start throwing fucking French fries at her at Texas Frightmare, but I thought I'd get in trouble.
Did you have the thing where she came out afterwards as she had something done with her breasts, and she came out and her top fell down? She didn't even realize that they were out, and her like publicist had to run over and like pull her shirt up. She was so desensitized there, she didn't even know that they were out.
Yeah,
I've
dude,
seen that, yeah.
I just figure like Jamie Kennedy, she's probably always fucking high on something. So, okay, instead of jumping on right to the convention stuff, what's the weirdest story from your job?
From my job?
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, you deal with like, nice people. Frank just falls off ladders and shit with Shark Tank.
what do you do, Frank?
I install, we engineer and install, test networks in buildings. So we install data, fiber optics, cable for telephones, PCs. We build networks, Wi-Fi. We also DV, security control, stuff like that. So what Shane is talking about is I did a job for Damon John, who is the guy on Shark Tank that created Woo Jeans. And so he was opening up his own office, and every day he would come by and do his little Twitter thing and video us working and how everything was coming along. And on the last day of the job, we had pulled all our material off the job, and he was walking around with another guy just seeing how things look. And I saw some cables up top that didn't really look nice. I wanted to fix it before he came over there. So there was one of his ladders, his company ladders, were leaning against the wall. I opened it up, and I tried to get up. It was like a 10 or 12 foot ladder, get up top and fix this cable, not realizing that the struts that hold the ladder together were broken. So I get up on top of this ladder, and the ladder just starts opening from the bottom. And it was either hang on and be hanging 12 feet in the air or just fall. So I decided to fall. I fell from 12 feet, landed on the floor right in front of him. And he didn't say a word to me, didn't ask me how I was. I stood up, picked up the ladder, and I walked right by him, and he just kept going on like it was nothing.
Did OSHA come by the next day, or?
No one came by, but I should have owned that place, honestly.
That's what I'm saying.
My wife was like, "You hurt? Let's go to the hospital." I'm like, "I'm fine. It's not the first time I fell off a ladder."
Well, it's one of the best things. If you watch the video, it's slow motion, and this motherfucker doesn't even like turn around,
Wait,
acknowledge
there's
it.
a video. There's a video of it.
Oh yeah.
Well, so what I was doing there, I was installing security cameras. So after I fell, I didn't remember how I hit the ground, what actually happened. So I went back and I rewound it and I watched it. And I said, you know what, let me record this in case I am hurt and I need this. So I actually recorded it. And then a bunch of friends, they edited it together and put it on like one of those Chuck Norris videos where he's shooting the gun and knocking people over and shooting me off the ladder. I got tons of videos of people doing that kind of stuff. Yeah, I'll show you the video one time. I'll show it to you.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm trying to find it. We're high tech here at Deathlocker, so I'm scrolling through my Facebook real quick trying to find it.
Yeah, post the link to that. Share that with all the fans.
Speaking of falling off stuff, this is before I had my actual job that I had now. But when I was 16, one of my first jobs was working at White Castle, and I worked overnights, and they used to have you like every month scrub the awnings on the outside of White Castle, and the guy who was working there gave me a really short brush, like to scrub the awning. And I even said, I go, this thing isn't long enough. He's like, oh no, you'll reach. So I went over to the awning and I'm scrubbing it. And mind you, this is like 5 a.m, like dusk, whatever. And I was trying to reach the awning and my feet flipped over the back of me and I fell off, rolled down the awning, hit the ground, and was like laying down. I thought I broke my arm. All these old people come running out because they're the only people there. They're eating breakfast and they see this dude just fall off the roof of White Castle. And then, but like me being the idiot, I was like 16 at the time. I continued working like my whole shift, and I ended up fracturing my elbow, and they didn't even pay for that. I had to pay for my own hospital bill.
Damn you, White
Man.
Castle. I thought 5 a.m. was like the busiest time for White Castle. Everyone's coming home high and getting a crave case.
Well, this was on like not the weekend. This was like a weekday. Oh, I'm watching your video.
Oh, here we go. Like, watch the cat-like reflexes.
Ooh.
I like when he falls, he just sits there on his knees and fucking stares.
Yeah, he's staring at the ladder. Like, damn you.
Yeah, I was dazed. I was just, I was hesitating if I should stand up or not. I was waiting for like my vision to come back to me.
That's awesome.
Cat
I can't believe you still have that, Shane. You must save that.
Oh, dude, man. I've got so much random stuff on my phone still.
That's classic. It has the crossbar on the one side.
Right, it was only on one side. The other side was that's why
Gotcha.
the ladder opened up that way and fell out. And I didn't notice that when I opened it. And of course, once I got on the top step, that's when the thing started to go.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things I just realized we didn't even talk about is this is a horror podcast, and what do you cats like about horror? You know, why are you on this podcast other than I Facebook message you and begged,
You blackmailing us.
sent naked pictures of myself in a G-string?
I already had those. You didn't.
Well, I sent you new ones.
Oh, I can't wait to see them. No, my whole thing started with horror. It wasn't really my parents because they were never really into movies. It would be my uncle Brian. He would watch us on the weekends, and he would always take me to the video stores. And I remember the very first horror movie that I watched was the Toolbox Murders. And ever since then, every weekend we would go to the video store, and he would let me pick out whatever horror movie I liked. And I didn't know half of these things. I was just picking them out by the cool boxes, you know what I mean? Like the bloody images they had on the front. And ever since then, though, I mean, I've just always been a fan of horror movies, and I don't know. And now my son's the same way. It's just something that it just sticks with some people. And then I know some people who hate horror movies, but I don't know. I just love them.
Oh man, I can't even tell you when I started. I know my dad used to all the time. He used to go to these movies, and for like a nickel, he'd get to see 5 movies and get some popcorn and you get some chocolate. And he grew up on those Universal monsters. So I grew up with my dad, and we used to watch Abbott and Costello meets Frankenstein, and I loved it. My bedroom growing up, I had Halloween decorations all over my wall until I was old enough to start seeing films myself, and then Jay Freddy, that whole bedroom. I can remember Christmas gifts when I was like 7 or 8 years old, getting Mego or Remco horror dolls, getting Frankenstein, the Mummy, Dracula, and I've loved it ever since. I mean, and to me, it's that's my thing, and I like the fact that it's not. Although it's becoming more mainstream now, but same thing like with people who like heavy metal. You kind of think like it's something that you have on your own, and not a lot of people love it, but all the people who do like it are like-minded people like yourself. You always tend to get along with those people, which is why in the post group, I met people like Shane and yourself, where we just get along. We like the same films. We have things in common, and that's the good thing about the horror genre. People tend to stick together somewhat.
Was it when you were older in life, when you started going to conventions and stuff, you started seeing, in magazines like Fangoria, Remorgue and stuff, that these conventions existed, and you just thought it'd be cool to go hang out with like-minded people, or was it something someone took you to?
The convention thing is exactly. I fell into that by accident. 85, 86, I was a big baseball card collector. So we collected baseball cards, baseball sports autographs. That was my thing. And I had a cousin of mine who not only he went to these conventions, but he also worked at them. And that one convention in particular that he was going to, and Ace Frehley from Kiss was going to be there. And I said, I want to meet him. I love Kiss. I'm going to bring my Kiss record. I'm going to have him sign it. So I went there with him, and it was amazing to me. It was like 5 minutes, you standing in front of the table, and just you and Ace Frehley. That was all. He was talking to you. It wasn't something that you were watching him up on stage, or you're listening to the album and imagining you're there. And I think autographs at the time were about $10 a piece, which it's a far cry from where they are now. And he signed my record, and there were other people there from horror films, and I'm like, well, I like these movies. That just seems like the natural progression. I could start collecting autographs from people in films that I like, and then that's how that started. So my cousin got me into that, and I haven't missed a Chiller show since that one. And now I've added Mania to that list that I attend twice a year. So, my autograph collection is kind of getting out of hand, which I imagine we're all in the same boat at this point.
So from your perspective, the whole horror movie is becoming a little bit more mainstream. The nerd culture has become a lot more mainstream in the last 15 years or so. And now it seems like, the horror side of it's, almost being lumped into that whole nerd culture. With the the signatures are getting more expensive. I mean, are you seeing the attendance at these conventions getting more and more problematic?
Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing the number of people that are attending the shows rise. I'm seeing prices rise, and I feel like people who were into the superhero movies and the horror movies, they're kind of all the same people. The people who used to not be the popular kids in school, and you read comic books and you listened to heavy metal and you liked horror movies, and you stuck with the two or three people in school that were the same as you. Now it's super cool to collect toys and walk around with a Superman T-shirt. I mean, it's all become it's come full circle. So horror is no different. I mean, you get one movie that comes out that hits and resonates with people, and then that's it. They continue, and it's a good thing because that means they'll hopefully start making better movies or more movies in that genre. And you never see horror win any awards, but then this year, Get Out won a bunch of awards. So it's definitely picking up steam. At least I feel.
So, Mike, you said, how old's your son?
My son is 14.
So when did you take him to his first con?
I think his very first one was C2E2. He was probably about, I'd say 7 or 8. And then every year since then, we've either hit up 2 or 3 cons a year. So, I mean, he's really become like cultured to it. He's real respectable, knows how to talk to people, and but for him, he even said that Horror Hound this year was his favorite con going experience out of anything that he's been to. New York Comic Con, C2E2, and I think what it is kind of like Frank was saying, is these horror cons are a lot different than, say, like C2E2 or Comic Con. I mean, you get these crazy fanatics at these other cons where it almost doesn't become fun. It's almost like a mad bum rush to, you know what I mean? And people are kind of like looking at each other. No one's really talking, you know what I mean? Where these horror cons, I mean, you could sit there and bullshit with someone for about 30-40 minutes about horror movies, you know what I'm saying? And everyone's, even the actors and everything, are just real nice, and they're just happy to be there. It genuinely shows on them, you know what I mean? It's not like a hassle to them, and you could sit there and talk to them for 20-30 minutes about one of their movies. And I don't know, it's just a totally different experience for me at these horror cons than some of these other cons.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that. I remember I started going to San Diego Comic Con. My first one was in 94. And San Diego Comic Con 94 through probably 2010 was a totally different experience than, what it's become. Back in the day, San Diego Comic Con, you could go to a panel and you wouldn't have to wait in line for 4 or 5 days to get in, or have to sit through 7 panels that you don't fucking care about just so you could be there for the Simpsons panel. Specifically with horror, the horror stuff they used to do during the day. Now I think of San Diego, they do all the horror stuff late at night. So it just gets to be kind of a pain. And it was a smaller, more, intimate experience. And that's kind of why I enjoy going to, I've only been able to go to Texas Frightmare as far as the horror cons. It's close to where I live at. And I've just loved Texas Frightmare. It's not the world's biggest con, it's a decent size, but you just get to bump into people and have conversations. And, you get to engage with folks that you talk to through these various Facebook groups. Social media has become, it's intertwined with the way that we communicate with everyone nowadays. So it's always an interesting experience when you meet somebody for the first time in real life, you've only been talking to on social media. It's kind of an awkward, it's kind of like doing this podcast. It's a little bit awkward when you talk to somebody, you hear their voice or you see their face, and it is when you're just, typing on a keyboard.
Yeah.
So I wanted to throw a shout out to your son, because to our one listener who our one listener who might be one of our 20 Instagram or Facebook fucking followers, a lot of the pictures that were posted up there were courtesy of him. And, he did a great job just taking some pictures, and getting some content out there.
It was funny. I actually told Shane, I didn't even know that he had contacted Shane because I told him, I go, Shane asked me if I could take some pictures for Deathlocker, and he's like, I'll take some too. And I'm like, okay. And then all of a sudden I start seeing all these pictures like popping up on the Facebook feed and the Instagram feed, and I'm like, where is Shane getting these from? And then my son's like, I asked Shane if I could send him pictures, and I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, that's cool. But I didn't even know he was sending them to you. It was pretty funny.
Yeah, like your kid just likes to hit up random bearded fat guys on social media and send them pictures.
Like father, like son. You know,
That's not creepy.
we
at
both
all.
we both. What I was gonna say though, there's a con in Chicago called Flashback Weekend. I don't know if you ever heard of it, and I don't know if they do anything like this out by you guys. But what they do is they set up a 80 feet tall by probably like 100 feet wide an old drive-in in the it's like an inflatable drive-in that they set up in the parking lot. And after the con, they show old horror movies, like up until 5 in the morning, 6 in the morning, and it's all free. So you go to the con during the day, and then at night you watch old horror movies on a big screen drive-in thing. It's pretty cool.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's actually really really cool.
Yeah, they don't ever have any fun stuff like that here in Oklahoma. It's always like boring shit.
You're lucky you get movies in Oklahoma.
Oh, dude, lucky we get fucking water in Oklahoma.
You have a movie named after your state. You got Oklahoma.
Okay.
That a
Not
horror
a fucking
movie?
movie named after Chicago. So where are we going with this?
Exactly. Yeah.
So Frank Someone doesn't have a fucking movie named after him.
Yeah, we have nothing here. New York's such a small place. We barely get anything. We're lucky we get conventions.
So Frank, you were at the con a couple weeks back where we talked a little bit about it on the last podcast. You know, Kane Hodder slicing someone's kidney open or some shit. Please, the blog I was following, reported that Kane Hodder damn near fucking, disemboweled somebody with a knife or a fucking whatever. So you were there for that, yeah?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm sure all of us have met Kane Hodder, and he's famous for choking you when you take a photo with him, and he's kind of gets a little physical and intimidating, and it's great. I think the people love it, and that's why he does it. So I wasn't there on the day it happened. What happened was I was there the following day, and I just happened to bring a machete with me to have a couple of the Jasons that were there because they had I think 6 or 7 of them that I had missed and get some of their autographs on this machete. My machete is it's a real machete, but it is not sharpened, so it's it's kind of. So I'm sitting there, and I was actually on the line for Paul Rubens, and I think he had received a threat that day. And so the guy came up to me and said, he's like, when you start moving up towards Mr. Rubens, I'm going to have to take that machete from you. So at that point, I just thought they were just protecting him, maybe thinking. So I said, no problem. He's like, do you mind if I see it? So I took it out. He wanted to see that there were autographs on it. Obviously I wasn't going to use something that's signed to lop off Pee Wee Herman's head. But so I was no problem. I let him take the machete, and he gave it back to me when I left the room. But then I had someone explain to me, well, the reason they're doing that because yesterday somebody handed Kane Hodder a machete that was sharpened, was an actual machete, and there was someone behind the table with Kane. It was either in his camp or someone that was working with him, or he was, I believe he was some kind of a stuntman as well, and friends with Kane, who was there with him that day, and he just kind of like fake swung it at him and just placed the blade on his arm, and it just went right in. And from the people that were there, told me there was tons of blood. So yeah.
Yeah, tons of blood. That's all I heard. I heard disembowelment, tons of blood. Pee Wee Herman was running because they're going to cut his dick off.
Yeah, don't bring sharpened machetes to a convention. I guess that's the moral of the story.
I just think it's awesome that they took it away from you when you're going to talk to fucking Pee Wee Herman.
Yeah, they're like, oh no, not Pee Wee.
So, okay, why was Pee Wee Herman at a horror con?
I believe he was in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, right? He was in the Buffy the Vampire Slayer film. But every once in a while they'll pull in a big name that's not necessarily horror, and the people seem to like it. Like I said, we're not that closed-minded. We're just into horror. So I mean, you bring in a couple of big names like that. I was thinking the reason that they wanted to take my machete from me is because he was charging $80 for an autograph.
How much?
$80.
For a fucking autograph.
For a Paul Rubens autograph, yes. And if you had him sign something Pee Wee Herman, he didn't even sign Paul Rubens. He just signed Pee Wee Herman. If you had him signed Mystery Men or Buffy the Vampire Slayer, then he would write Paul Rubens, which I found. So
this might be a little bit of a deep cut for you, but what if somebody busted out something from the movie Tripper?
I don't even know what that is.
Gee, fuck. Okay, so...
Yeah, I don't know what that is either.
Fuck Bolt and Jimmy didn't know about it either. So this is a movie that starred fucking Lucas Haas, David Arquette, and he actually directed it, Thomas Jane, Pee Wee Herman, and Jason Mewes.
You know what? I did see this movie. Shane, you sent me this movie.
I did. That's why I was fucking asking you, because you wanted like a bunch of movies to watch while you went someplace, and I sent you like, a fucking 10 movies, and Tripper was one of them.
And 3 of them were really good. I remember.
So the movie basically is your basic, stoner slasher movie, but the killer dresses up like Ronald Reagan and talks like Ronald Reagan. So it's like, I'm not going to try to do fucking, I'm going to kill you with my knife. Yeah, jelly beans. There's my fucking Ronald Reagan.
I think I've seen this movie. Now that you're,
But Paul Rubens has a significant part in there. He's like the event coordinator. It's like a Coachella type event.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah, and everyone's it's a fucking awesome movie, man. That one, and I don't know. I just can't believe you guys don't know fucking Tripper.
That's why you're the ringleader.
no, I think I've seen it, but I don't think it was that. I don't know. I vaguely remember Ronald Reagan killing people. Now that you're talking about it,
It's not Point Break.
no.
I feel like this needs to be another Frank drunk commentary or Frank commentary.
Oh, that's the Frank drunk commentary. That happens like once a year.
We'll get the Mike drunk commentary then.
Oh, that's you get that any weekend.
Oh, jeez.
Usually in a bathroom in a hotel near you.
The glory hole. So, what's the wackiest, most fucking weird thing you've had happen to you at a convention? Horror convention. Not the fucking furry convention. Or TeddyCon. If we're going to go really deep cuts, TeddyCon.
So, we don't know anyone that does that stuff. Oh, the weirdest thing. I mean, I don't know if this is weird, but I waited on a line to meet Corey Feldman for 8 hours.
Why?
He was in Friday the 13th part. He was in Friday the 13th part 4, and
Did you walk up to him and tell him you want to be one of his angels?
Yeah, that was. I actually made friends on that line that I still talk to this day. That's how long we were on that line for. After the 4-hour mark, I had a friend of mine who was on the line with me that wasn't even getting an autograph, and he's like, "You're not getting off this line. It's the point of it now. We're just going to wait it out." I mean, he took cigarette breaks and food breaks and piss breaks, and it was everyone gets a signature and he gets a picture, and it was forever. But I did it.
Now, was this when he was doing like real signatures, or is this when he was doing his really fucked up, I'm going to mess up whatever you put in front of me with my weird signature?
No, the signature is the regular signature with a peace symbol, and he would not do it without personalizing. So everyone had to have it personalized. So that kind of bummed me out a little, but that's fine. But weird story. Wow, I would have to give me a minute. Maybe Mike has one, and I can think of something. I mean,
you've never been like accosted or.
I have a weird story, but it doesn't have it happened because of a convention, but it wasn't at a convention. It was I was working overnights, and then across the street from me they have this thing called Mr. Leather Convention. I don't know if they have it out by you, but it's called the big. I'm not bullshitting you. It's called the Big Bear.
Wait. First of all, what's the fucking Mr. Okay, so you're going to explain to us what the Mr. Leather Convention is. So this is not too far off of TeddyCon.
I have no clue. I don't know what that is. But what it is it's like big. They call it the Big Bear Leather Convention. It's big, huge guys, and these guys look like linebackers, like big, like biker dudes that like just wear all leather. And I'm guessing most of them are gay because. I mean, and they're wearing like assless chaps, whatever.
assless chap. I knew that was coming.
Yeah, and they're walking around like Chicago. Well, anyways, I was outside having a cigarette break outside my work, and this guy came up to me. He wasn't wearing like anything crazy. He had like a leather vest on with no shirt on underneath and like a little like biker hat on. And he was like, hey, dude, this is crazy story. And he comes up and he's like, do you have a cigarette? Because I was smoking. I was like, yeah, here, sure. So I give him a cigarette, and he's like, no, I didn't. It gets there. So we're standing there, and then he's like, are you from around Chicago? I go, well, I'm from the South Side. I go, I live about 45 minutes outside of here. And he's like, oh, really? He's like, what do you do here? I go, I'm an engineer. I work on like the heating, cooling, carpentry, pretty much. We're pretty much every trade thrown into one. And so we're bullshitting. And then out of nowhere, he goes, hey, you want to go around the corner and I could suck your dick? And I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah. He's like, we'll go right around the corner. And I was like, No, and it just blew my mind. At first, I had to like double check. Like, what? Like, did you?
Like how far was it around the corner when you got there? How long did it take you to get there?
Well,
You close your eyes, he could become an Electra. You never know.
it wasn't far actually. It was like right around there, like an alley.
Was your break a little short?
Well, that's what I told him. I go. I only have like 30 seconds left. If I had a little bit longer, I may take you up on it. But it blew my mind that he was just so blunt about it. And but that's my crazy convention story.
Yeah. The scariest things at these conventions are the other people.
Exactly. That's
a lot
my
of
crazy story.
So no crazy stuff at like a horror con. Everything's been pretty low key for you at the conventions.
Yeah, everything's been pretty low key. Never had anything nuts like that. Literally nuts.
I mean, that's pretty much my experience too. Has been pretty user friendly. You walk around, you stare at the people. I think 2 years ago, I got in a little Facebook spat with somebody, so I stood in front of his booth and gave him the fucking stink eye for like 5 minutes. And
I think I know who that is. I think he was at Horror Hound this year too.
Yeah, you just watch two fat people with beards run into each other, sumo style.
Yeah, sumo wrestle.
There we go. But other than that, man, it would have been like the Bear Convention Part 2 for fucking Mike.
Yeah, oh yeah. You could come this year. I don't think it's happened yet.
And yeah, we'll save the whole TeddyCon thing because that's a podcast for a different day. But yeah, my convention experience has been pretty user friendly. Just meeting up with people, spending more money than I really wanted to spend. Nothing really weird, I mean, my best experience was about 2 years ago before, and my brain is gonna fucking die on me right now. The Tall Man. I'm having a brain fart.
Angus Scrim.
Thank you. It was before Angus passed away, and I got a poster signed. I was getting a poster for somebody, and I at first wasn't a big fan of the art, and then I was strategic with how I got Dawn's signature and Angus's signature. I got Dawn's, and then Tammy, my wife, she got Angus's, and she sat down and talked to him. And dude was like the best dude. I mean, he just sat there and would talk to you for like 5 minutes. His handler was like telling you to shut up because he was doing that, old man, I'm going to talk to you forever and just ask you a bunch of random questions thing. And then, once we got that signed, I was like, fuck, I want to, the poster signed, and I was to go get another poster, wasn't able to get a sign, and then he passed away. But I mean, that was kind of one of my best con experiences because it was just, cool. I got a chance, we got in there early, got a chance to talk to him, and it was just a fun experience. I haven't had anything really weird happen yet.
Have you met a lot of people that have now passed away? Because I feel like I have a ton of them.
No, man. I mean, I'm not a big signature guy, to be honest. There's only a few properties I might want a signature, but I'm not the biggest stand in line for a signature. So I'm not a huge fanboy in regards that I'm like, oh yeah, I was in an elevator with Tom Savini and my life is complete now. Some dudes get off on that. That's just not my shtick.
Savini is not a nice guy.
Yeah, he was kind of a dick, man. I mean, I was just in the elevator going up, and he gave me this look like, "Don't fucking talk to me, or I'm gonna knee you in the fucking nuts."
Did I ever tell you about my experience with him with the JRD Dawn of the Dead?
No.
So we went to Days of the Dead in Chicago, and Savini was there, and I brought the poster up, and I'm like, "Oh, hey, nice to meet you," and shook his hand, and he like was not acknowledging me at all, which was totally weird. And then I was like, would you be able to sign it right here at the bottom? And he's like, I sign it wherever I want. And so he took his fucking Sharpie and signed it huge right in the middle of the skull. And I'm like, thanks, dick. And like, I just walked away. I'm like, what a fucking asshole.
He just looks like he's pissy.
Yeah, he was not a nice guy.
He's on that list of people that are not too pleasant, and if you can catch him on a better day, but he usually tends to be that way.
Yeah, but I mean, people love him on fucking Facebook and Twitter. Tom Savini's the best.
Well, that's what sucks, though. That's what I kind of don't like about, like, with autographs. And, I mean, I get a lot of them, but it just kind of sucks when you build up this person, like, oh, they seem like such a nice person, and then you meet them, and they're, like, a total asshole. And it's like, God damn it. It's like, you almost wish you never went up there, you know what I'm saying?
Last year, my wife and I it was Friday night after Texas Frightmare, and it had closed down. Everyone's kind of, about to go to the little fucking parties and stuff that they have. And Shannon Elizabeth was like walking in front of us, and somebody just walked up to her and it was just like, hey, how you doing? You're doing oh my God, yeah, it's so nice, And the guy's like, "Can I get a picture?" And she goes, "Oh, I'm sorry, honey. I'll be at my booth tomorrow, and you can buy one from me."
Uh,
And this dude was just like fucking heartbroken. His face was just like, "What a fucking bitch, man."
That is my new favorite thing to hate. I mean, like I said before, autographs used to be $10 and $15 when I was first going to these conventions, and a picture was free. Now they're charging you as much for a picture with them with your own camera as they are with the autograph, and they have like a little combo which is supposed to make it feel a little better when it's going in. But $30 for autograph, $30 for a picture, $50 for the combo. And my rule about conventions is I do not pay for pictures. If they charge for a picture, I have a picture of them signing, but I will not take a picture with them.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta think that social media has kind of driven that up too, because now all the phones have what I think your basic level phone has an 8 megapixel camera in it, so you can get good quality pictures. And then everyone's posting stuff up on Facebook, and so these guys aren't making as much selling their stills because you can just get a fucking free picture. But yeah, man, I mean, I'm with you on that because there's a few things I wouldn't mind getting signed, but it's hard for me to justify spending $100 on a signature.
well, the coolest was when we met. Gunnar Hansen was one of the nicest guys that I met, and I actually met him. It was like 4 months right before he passed away. It was at Days of the Dead in Chicago, and he sat there and talked to like 12 of us in like a round circle, and he was talking about the new Texas when they were doing the one they just released where Leatherface is a little kid.
Yeah, the emo Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the emo adventures.
That was that was horrible. That movie was bad.
It was fucking.
It was
It was dumb.
it was horrible.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was one of the nicest guys. Super nice.
So, what's been your guys' experience with just meeting up with folks that you've only engaged with on like Facebook?
Well, my whole thing is I pretty much get along with everybody. Some people don't like me.
You won't go in the back alley and let them give you blowjobs. That's why.
No, I don't know what it is. My whole thing is, if I say something, like I'm never gonna attack anybody. Because I personally wouldn't want to be attacked. But some people just don't like the way that I am. Like if I don't like something or I like something, I'll come right out and say it. I'm not gonna water it down for somebody just because they don't want to hear it. You know what I mean? But usually when people meet me in person, they see that I'm a super chill, super nice guy. So. I've never really had a bad experience meeting someone in person. As long as they're cool with me, I'm cool with them,
I think the first time I met you was at MondoCon. And, we had talked a little bit here and there on Facebook, and you just walked up and you shoved a Gatorade in my face. And you're like, take a Gatorade, be hydrated, and walked away. And I'm like, what the fuck?
I think the first time, I can't remember if it was Lewis or who it was, but we were in pinballs, and I was loaded because I was drinking that moonshine. And they came into the bathroom at Pinballs, and I was at the urinal, and I had my pants and underwear and everything off, and I was just standing there, and they were like, "Oh," they're like, "What are you doing?"
Why the fuck did you have your pants and your fucking underwear down while you're?
I do stuff like that. I'm like not a good person when I'm drunk. I do
12. I mean, was it a trough?
I don't know.
Imagine when you're drinking, that's the way you use the urinal. You just drop everything. You're not getting things out through a zipper hole. It all comes down. That's how it happens.
That's how we do it in Chicago.
Yeah.
I was thinking that's the kind of behavior that has random bears walking up to you offering blowjobs in the fucking alleyway.
Right. You were sending out the vibes that you didn't even know about.
I guess. But yeah, but I mean, I get along with everybody. Like I said, as long as you're not a blatant asshole. I mean, even if I got in arguments with people on Facebook, and I never really have, but I mean, I'll always give people the benefit of the doubt,
So you haven't had that moment where there was somebody that you just did not get along with in one of the forum groups, and then you bump into them like at a horror con or something, and you just want to punch them in their face?
Nope. Can't say that I have.
No, not really. Mm-mm.
Y'all are better people than I am.
Yeah, the only time I don't say anything that would set people off. I get to arguments when I'm defending a point, which kind of happened with I don't know if any of you guys were in that print commission that was done last year of that scene with the tree.
I wasn't in it. I know what you're talking about, though.
So to our non-poster listeners, all of us are in various poster groups for pop culture art, and one of the things that goes on with the poster groups is we get artists and we commission art for specific properties. And he's talking about a commission that was done where the focus of the print was the rape scene from Evil Dead, and everybody just seemed to lose their shit because they felt that anybody who was in the commission for the Evil Dead poster with the rape scene was themselves a horrible human being and a rapist, and all they did is troll the fucking streets at night looking to fucking violate women.
And these people they were really angry, and I understand, they were victims of rape. And I actually I got into a heated argument. I was like, you may not like what they're doing, but you have to defend their right to do it. This is what art is based on. This is what horror is on: pushing the envelope and bringing it to the next level. You're never going to succeed if you're doing the same thing over and over. So we got into that commission. It was happening, and I started defending the point, and people were attacking me, and they were like, well, this person had it happen to them. And I said, listen, I've had an experience in my life where I was touched by someone that I didn't like, and it didn't change my life. I'm not against it. I guess this art affects people different. And my thing was, it was a secret group. You only knew about the group if you were in the group. Somehow it got out, and these people just wanted to attack us and tell us how bad people we were for even wanting a print like that on our wall. And I got into it with several people. Never had the opportunity to meet any of those people, but I'm sure we'd get along fine if we did meet. I'm not really that kind of person anyhow.
I kind of had the same situation recently with another poster, and things didn't go well, and it was crazy because all I was saying was that I liked it. I didn't even say any, and the minute I said that I liked it, I was being attacked by everyone saying I was a misogynist, I was this, I was that, and that's the whole thing though. Nowadays, you can't even say you like something or something's different, because the minute that you don't agree with the norm, you get attacked. And 90% of the people that get attacked like this, they're quick to apologize. That's another thing. Apologies have kind of become second nature now. Like, they don't even mean anything anymore. And so, like, people apologize just so they know they get back in everyone's good graces. Half of these apologies aren't even heartfelt. It's just, I know if I apologize, people will forget about it. You know what I mean? Which is kind of stupid. I think people, if you're going to say something, I mean, you don't have to apologize for everything. It's okay to have a different, or to feel differently about something. It doesn't make you a bad person. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you could be offended. You could be offended by something I say, but guess what? It's not going to hurt you. Get offended. Nothing happens. It's okay.
Exactly.
I think one of the interesting things with social media being such a constant in everyone's lives, and especially with Facebook, Instagram, and all that, in context to the various communities, whether it's the poster communities, horror communities, or whatever communities, is we're quick to act on impulse, and we're quick to vilify people for giving their opinions. And sometimes when people do give you your apology, I think they are heartfelt. It's just they had to step back and think about it, and they're like, well, fuck, I was kind of stupid. But we really are kind of conditioned to vilify people quick, and we are under the whole bandwagon mentality to where, using the Evil Dead print as an example, a few people who had, I'm trying to think of the best way to phrase it, since one of them might actually listen to this podcast.
Yeah, I didn't want to get into that. I know there were people that were offended for good reason. So
when you're dealing with Facebook groups with people who you're going to meet in real life, there's a perception of self-importance that comes sometimes, or you allow yourself to fall into if you're a mod for that group, and you almost take on an authoritative role. And I think what happened was there was a lot of bandwagon jumping, and it's just something that pops up, whether it's especially in the horror community, whether it's a poster, whether it's the Jeepers Creepers. I know I myself tried to run a Jeepers Creepers commission that was a fucking horrible thing. So much gets attached to that property, and I'm rambling a little bit, but to get it back to the Evil Dead, I mean that was a disturbing scene in the movie. So if you're a fan of the movie and you're a fan of how that movie made you feel, you're like, wow, this was really disturbing. This is a scene that I particularly remember, it affected me. This is one of the reasons why I like Evil Dead, because, this scene, hit me. It stayed with me. I'm not 100% averse to having a piece of art that captures that. I'm not saying I'm going to put it in my bathroom, or I'm going to donate it to my fucking local church. But, if I'm a horror fan, horror fans have a tendency to have a lot of fucking bloody, gory, disturbing shit around there.
I mean, isn't that what we like? Isn't that what we hear? I mean, we're horror movie fans. I mean, we don't want to see murder in real life, but we watch it 30 times in a single film. I mean, you have to be able to separate that. I think what bothered me most about that, there were two things. Is one, the artist took it on knowing what it was and was okay with it, and then decided not to do it because of pressure from either artists or other people outside the room. And I was really upset that the commissioner let it die because
it's not dead.
From what I heard, it was dead.
I don't think it's dead.
I was still for it when we asked to vote on it and say if they wanted to continue it or put the money towards another project. I voted to stay with that. I mean, if someone else has the original art and is going to do the separations, I'd love to have that print still.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's dead. I actually, I'm friends with the commissioner, and at one point I was in talks with the artist to buy the original pencils for it.
Right. Well, as we all are friends with him, and I know how much that scene meant to him, which is why, I was pretty shocked that he was able to let it go because of things that people were saying to him and hurtful things. I understand, but at that point is when you have to stick with it. And so I hope it does come out. Who knows? Down the line, these happen. Prints happen further from the inception date than we've seen before.
So that kind of gets to a little bit of an interesting point. So, Mike was talking earlier about how the horror community is a little bit more forgiving, a little bit more user-friendly. Being in both the horror community and a separate collectors community, in this case, the poster groups, do you feel that both communities are equal in their approach to collecting, or what differences do you see?
You know what? I'm besides just art and horror. I collect a lot of things. I am a collector, and if I sat here and listed all the things that I collect, we could be here for days. I feel like there are people who do it for different reasons, whereas everyone who's into horror likes horror movies for the same reason. They like the thrill, they like to be scared, they like the gore, they like the story. I feel like in the art groups, there are people who just like the art. There are people who like films and just want an alternative looking poster for that film. So people who collect art for art's sake are different than people who collect for, say, value or to buy it and flip it down the line. So you have a lot of different people in the art groups, as opposed to, I feel like everyone in the horror groups kind of almost the same mindset.
Now, Mike, you've been to both horror conventions and poster conventions and galleries and stuff. I mean, how would you equate the experiences?
The gallery shows that I go to, depending on, I always try to go to a gallery show where I know the artist, or lots of times I'll go to support the gallery because we don't have many art shows in Chicago. So the few that we do have, but I always try to make sure it's something that I'm into. Like Jay Ryan usually has something out here. He usually has his workshops. All Star Press, they have stuff out here. Gallery F has stuff. Like the last one that I went to at Gallery F was it was punk rock and paintbrushes, where it had Warren from the Vandals, Skiba, Matt Skiba. Who else was there? A few other artists. That was really cool. But as far as that and cons, I always just I try to just go to what I would like, and like the art that I like, and posters. I've noticed that I've started kind of getting away from movie posters because it's just so saturated right now. I mean, you can only take so much of one print, you know what I mean? And it just seems like there's so much out there right now. So I'm kind of taking a step back from that. I'm really not buying that much anymore. I'm in a lot of commissions that still have to be completed. But as far as the groups, like the different Facebook groups and stuff like that, the horror groups tend to be a lot more forgiving, not forgiving, just a little more lenient. Whereas some of these other Facebook groups with the posters and stuff like that, it almost seems like the moderators kind of see themselves in this godly position. And what they got to remember is the groups would be nothing without everyone. It's not the moderators. The moderators do not make the groups. The groups are made up of everyone. And if they didn't have everyone in these groups, their groups would be nothing. I mean, they can think that it's them all they want, but, they need to take a step back some of the times. I mean, they're not making these groups. And I've noticed even, like, after being in the groups for so many years, that there's a new batch of people coming up, and a lot of the older people are stepping down just because it's not the same anymore. It's kind of losing its luster.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit on the head when you said more forgiving in the horror groups are, and not just horror, sci-fi, and even like when you get into some of the Disney stuff, when it's genre specific, it's more about the fandom the collecting as opposed to the value or the placement of value on an individual item. Frank, you had mentioned you're in a bunch of toy groups, and I have to say, toy groups probably walk that weird line between fandom of a property and nostalgia and actual value of those toys.
There are arguments that go on in toy groups that you wouldn't even believe. Grown men arguments, things that they won't tolerate. It's almost sometimes you can't even believe it, and they're very adamant about their stances on certain things. Like, just to be quick about it, you have a vintage toy from 1985, and you have it what they consider what they call MOC, or mint on card, still in its original packaging and not touched. And you have guys that doesn't really mean much to, and they'll buy it, they'll open it. They have banned people from group from opening toys just for we had X amount of sealed items left in the world, and now there's one less because of you. They will ban you from the group for that. They will ban you from the group for talking about reproduction parts or buying if there's a part that's missing from your thing. And there are people that are making repros now. They have like 3D printers and molds of it. They will ban you for selling or talking about reproduction parts. It's a very I mean, they're the Star Wars groups, the GI Joe groups, a lot of the groups that I'm in. They're very, they don't want to hear that. You start talking about repros, and they start tagging moderators right away. They want, they don't want that in their group.
I mean, at some point, doesn't that take away the fun from the collecting aspect?
You know what? Again, I'm in the same boat as I am with the horror thing. I have 0 repro parts in my collection. I don't buy them because I enjoy the hunt, and I'd rather find that piece. Even if I have to pay a little more money for it, I'd rather it all be vintage. But if someone doesn't want to do that and they just want to put it on their shelf and they're missing the staff or the gun for that guy to complete him and they want to buy a repro part, I have no problem with that. The real problem lies with people buying something with repro parts and then trying to sell it as real. And that's where the problem comes in. But again, you can't stop that. If repro parts are being made, so there are, people who should make repro parts, you should label it repro or change the color so that's different from the original. There are all these arguments that go back and forth that people have on a daily basis with this. And it's just, I don't want to tell anyone how to collect. You do what you do, and that's no one's going to tell you what you can do with your collection. If you want to buy this thing and open it, I don't agree with you. I wouldn't do that myself, but I'm not going to get in the group and argue with you because you opened up something that you paid for. It's yours. Once you buy it, it's yours. And so, I mean, that's where I differ. But some of these guys, they have a hard line stance for that. I feel like the art world is a lot like that, where the horror group people tend to get along and I understand, I get your point. And in the art group, it's a totally different. If someone doesn't like the thing, they're going to stand up for that. They have people who are on their side. There are people who are not on their side, and they'll just go at it 200, 300 comments to a thread and just keep it going. People are screenshotting and sharing in other groups, just it gets out of hand in the art groups, I feel.
Yeah, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head, when we're talking about the horror fan groups. For the most point, it's more, again, it's a celebration of a genre or a property. So, if somebody gets something that looks cool and they go and get it signed, there's not as many people who are up in arms because you opened up a certain pop and you got so-and-so to sign something, or you have a certain print or a poster and you got somebody to sign something. You get the random comment like that whether it's an original one sheet or whether it's a screen print, you'll get the, hey, that's a weird signature because it's got X amount of value. But I think you get far more, hey, that's cool. That's something cool for your collection in the horror community. And when you're going to conventions and stuff, I think a lot of the vendors and stuff, they kind of appreciate that. So what they're selling is, there's a value to it, but it's more driven towards, here's something that's cool for your collection.
Do you really see a lot of fights in our horror groups? Rarely,
No, never.
Just Shane and his artist. That's really it.
I mean, I really can't think of anything that's really popped up. One name that popped, I'm not going to say dude's name because I don't know if you say dude's name and he hears something, he'll get all pissy. But his name popped up again today, and it's an individual who was caught up selling fake autographs and taking people's money to get autographs, and then he was just either keeping the money or he was just Johnny Hancocking it himself.
Really?
Yeah.
I must have missed this one.
Yeah, I didn't see this either.
Yeah, it's I'll shoot you offline, hit you guys up on it. But yeah, and he recently tried to join a couple of the groups that we're all in, and it came up again. But that's probably the closest I've seen to some real shenanigans going on as far as the horror groups and the horror conventions. Is for the most part, people are relatively respectful towards everybody. I've only done Texas Frightmare a couple of years. I'm sure you guys have been to a bunch other, but I've seen very few, completely drunken idiots making huge spectacles themselves. Or at some of the other conventions, you hear about, people just doing all kinds of stuff and people getting hurt and, you know, all that. So, I mean, it just seems like in general, the horror community is a little bit more user friendly.
Right. It's definitely more trust. I mean, the first time I met you, Shane, I was sending you money to buy me something. I didn't even know who you were or know anything about you. I'm sending you money. I had another Blake who went to the show for me that time. I sent him an autograph picture that I had a couple autographs on, and I sent him some money. He got this signed for me and sent it back to me. I've done the same thing for people where I picked up things if they didn't live in the area and I was at a con that was down here. I would do the same thing. And I've had that tons of times to do that. And I just feel like I've made a lot of good friends from conventions, just talking to people and meeting them like that. And they're just trustworthy people. I just feel like, horror people are just, I don't know.
And that's the other part about social media is kind of interesting is it's individuals who you've never met in real life, but based off of conversations on social media, you're like, hey, I'll send you money. I mean, I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing in retrospect, but I've done it before. Here, take my money. Here's this, here's that.
You've probably never been burned, right? You've never been burned.
No. I mean, I've never been screwed over or anything. I know people who have.
Yeah, no, I never have.
We know people who have been screwed over by certain individuals, but I think internal in the community, we kind of weed those people out. And I'm sure, any other folks who aren't in the same groups that we're in, who are in similar type groups, they have, that's one of the things that mods, they do is they try to weed out the folks who are ripping people off because it just damages the collecting community. So we're talking about conventions, told a couple of stories. What, Texas Frightmare is coming up. I don't think either one of you guys are going to Texas Frightmare this year, correct?
Nope.
Yeah, I'm not like a travel guy. I do the local cons. It's hard for me to even do those. So, I mean, I know everyone's always trying to get me to one, and I'd love to go just more to meet you guys than to go to the cons. But, I'll probably just wind up sending Shane a bunch of shit to get signed for me this year.
So, I mean, what's, we got maybe a listener or three by the time we put this one out. They're looking at going to a convention. They're trying to get their little go bag together. What kind of advice do you have?
Travel light. Whatever you're going to bring that day, you're going to be carrying that the entire day. I usually tend to bring a couple of Post-it tubes. I have them Velcro together and I make a strap out of that. I want to be able to, when I get to the front of the line, there are hundreds of people behind me that want to get their autograph and they want to get in there, and you start spending too much time pulling things out and opening things up, and you got to let things dry, holding several things. It just kind of gets difficult. So I try to take as little as possible, just what I'm going to get signed. Other than that, you can take little breaks in between. Just standing on your feet in the same spot all day gets a little tiring, and that just goes the same for art shows or anything that we do. So there's not enough room to be wheeling carriages or things that hold items. So I just try to get small stuff, throw it in a little backpack if I can. That's really all. That's all I can think of.
Cash or credit?
Cash.
Always cash. Always cash.
Yeah, always cash. Because either they'll have a problem or they won't have like the little square machines at certain exhibitors, certain vendors won't have them, or the Wi-Fi is real spotty in the building they're at. Always bring cash.
Have either of you guys ever had problems with like your credit cards getting stolen or anything weird like that?
I did actually. Just when I was coming back from Horror Hound in Cincinnati. It's quite funny. So we stopped off in Indiana at this small like mom and pop gas station, and it was me, my son, and my son's friend, and we went inside, and I told them they wanted something to drink. They went and got it. And the kid behind the counter, he wasn't a kid. He was probably like 22, 23, but to me, he looked like a kid. But he was all goofy, and he was telling me the credit card machine didn't work at the front, but he could swipe it on his side. So I wasn't thinking anything about it. I gave him my credit card. I left, and that was the last place I used it. And then about an hour late, no, it was about 2 hours later, I was with my fiance, and I got an alert from Chase saying I had a $750 transaction, a Western Union wire transfer through Facebook. And I was like, what is this? So I called Chase, and evidently my credit card information had gotten stolen. And I'm pretty sure that guy who worked at that Luke gas station in Lafayette, Indiana, was behind the stealing of my information. Not 100%, but I'd say about 98% sure.
So they ended up sorting everything out for you?
Yeah, well, they ended up putting the money back the next day, but then they took it out again. And then they gave me some kind of temporary like cash advance while they did their investigation. And they said that if it came out that I was lying, that they would keep the money, but I had nothing to worry about because I knew that I didn't wire $750 through Facebook. So yeah, it ended up going back. It's just a hassle though now because now I got to change everything that was on that card, all my payments, my instant payments, stuff like that. But it's what you got to do.
So the end state would be travel light, carry as much cash as you can, and try to avoid any kind of electronic transactions unless it's from like a vendor or something that you 100% trust.
Exactly.
All right, cool. Sounds good.
Also, too, one quick thing. I know Frank was saying he uses the tubes. I used to use the tubes, but I've switched to a foam core sandwich with painter's tape around the bottom, and then the inside is lined with paper so it doesn't stick when it's open, like when you put prints inside. And I find that easier just because you could pull stuff out real quick, lay it on top of the foam core while you're waiting in line, and then instead of having to roll it, because I did the tubes for a long time, and if you're getting signatures, I just find that way faster. I don't know.
Now, when you're getting signatures on items, would you recommend, putting some sort of protective plastic covering or the areas open where you actually want the signature?
Well, I never do that. I know lots of people do. They'll tape it off and cut out the area where they want the signature. Something depending on what, like how, if it's a more expensive print or something, or if it's a more rare collectible that I'm bringing, I'll take more care, obviously, on how I'm handling it. Like the prints, I may put in acid-free polybag, stuff like that. But if I like recently, I had Tobin sign about eight of his prints that I brought with to Horror Hound, and I had them all in a foam core sandwich, and it took about, I'd say, about a minute and 30 seconds to get them all signed real quick.
By Tobin, you're referring to Matty Tobin,
Matty Ryan Tobin,
whose art is apparently magical.
It is. He's quite a handsome fellow himself too.
That is what I have seen, and I have actually, man hugged Mr. Tobin, and it's something that I'll carry with me to my grave.
Shane usually has me grabbing artists for him, so I get to do that for him.
He's asked me to do that quite a few times too.
There's nothing wrong with the little, goosing of an artist here and there.
Right, but when I walk up to an artist and I goose him, and he turns around and looks at me and doesn't know who I am, and I say, "Well, that's from Shane." That's usually the weird moment, and then we bond after that. Yeah.
So, who was it you goosed?
Who did you have me do it to last year? It wasn't Conan, right? Was it?
I'm pretty sure it was Nerdlocker writer Cake Bliskin, otherwise known as James Raheem Davis, who will be co-hosting a couple podcasts with us here on Deathlocker.
Yes, that was 2 years ago, and we talked a bunch and became a little friendly on that one. But last year you had me get your How to Train a Dragon print. Remember?
Okay, so that would have been Patrick Conan, who's done a bunch of work for Hero Complex Gallery.
Yeah, he got goosed as well. So that's 2 years in a row I've grabbed the man ass for you.
See, I got to keep saying people's names so that way I can hashtag them and try to get more than the 4 fucking followers that we have.
So we're just throwing out names. Jason Edmiston.
This is all strategic.
I know. I was talking to I didn't know Gary and Josh are the ones who do From My Parents' Basement.
Yes,
the podcast.
Yes,
because we were talking all about him when I was over there, and they were saying how they had Doyle on there. Because I saw the picture, but I didn't hear the podcast. And Gary said the recording actually got all jacked up from that. And they lost the recording from that episode.
And by Gary, you're referring to Ghoulish Gary?
Gary Poulin, sorry. There we go.
So if you guys ever had an experience where you had something cool you loved, you went to go take it to get it signed, and whoever you gave it to just manhandled the fuck out of it.
Oh, yeah. I've had autographs smeared. Leslie Nielsen smeared something of mine one time.
What the fuck are you getting Leslie Nielsen to sign?
I had him sign several things. I had him sign my Dracula Dead and Loving It poster. I had him sign my Creepshow book.
Okay.
I had him sign and a Naked Gun poster that I had.
I totally spaced he was in Creepshow.
Yeah. So, yeah, I've had that happen. I've had, people roll the poster around, put their arm across it, increase it. I've had people sign it too far at the edges of the borders. I've had people sign over other people's names. I mean, these are all... My thing is when I hand someone, they always ask me, like, where do you want it signed? How do you want it signed? Whatever. I just tell them whatever you want. I like when they do their own thing and put it wherever they want, and just it's gonna hang on my wall. Just do something crazy with it, whatever you want to do. I really don't care. I leave it to them. I don't tell them where to sign it. They ask me what color preference, whatever you want.
So if you had like an original Star Wars one sheet and you had Mark Hamill sign it, and he did one of his little random "fuck you, need a pancake" signatures, you're cool with that?
Yeah, remind me to show you mine later.
Oh. You've been there, done that.
He signed at Celebration 5 in Orlando. I went to. He signed far away from him, from his character on the poster, and then drew a big arrow across the poster pointing to him.
I would have been pissed, man.
I don't care. That was a very cool moment too. I met Carrie Fisher at that convention, and the guy who was on the line that day told me, "Listen, she's not really in a good mood. She's not very talkative. Just go up there, no pictures. She's just gonna sign, write them, and you leave." So I get up to the front of the line. I put my figure down and my picture, and I just said, "I need." She's like, "Is that all you want?" And I said, well, I didn't know, was that a trick question? And I said, yeah, these 2 items just to sign this. She goes, that's it? You waited all this time and this is all you want? And I was like, yeah, pretty much. So she looks at me straight face and says, can I sign your head? And I said, without a second's hesitation, absolutely. And she stood up, she grabbed the back of my head, pushed it down, and she signed in silver Sharpie the top of my head, Carrie Fisher.
That's awesome.
And you know how that tattoo?
No, I didn't have a tattoo, but I have photos of it. So I walked up the line, and the guy on the line asked me, what did you say to her? She hasn't been that personal with anyone the entire day I've been here. I said, I didn't really say anything. It was probably just my charm and good looks. That's what I'm attributing to. Gets them every time.
That's awesome. So before we cut things off, a friend of mine, a guy I follow on Twitch, goes by the name of Scully Boy or Skull Boy or some shit. He asked me an interesting question the other day. He was like, if you could be an extra in one horror movie, which movie and why? So Mike, if you could be an extra in one horror movie, which movie and why?
Oh, jeez. This is a tough one. Nah, not that one. Not that one.
It cannot be a porn parody.
Oh, damn it.
I know you were.
Texas Dildo Masquerade's out of there?
Well, I mean, I figured when you were talking about your Big Bear experience, you might have went for Nightmare on Elm Street 2.
Yeah, I should have. No, if I had to think of maybe Shaun of the Dead.
And why?
It just seems like it was a fun movie. I mean, and I love Peg, and I don't know. I think that would have just been a fun movie to be a part of, like with the whole filming and stuff like that. So that would be mine.
Fair enough, Frank.
Let me think. Friday the 13th?
Well, no, okay. So Frank's a huge Friday the 13th fan, so we got to adjust the rules a little bit for him. No Friday the 13th and no Creepshow.
Oh, Jesus. What horror movie would I like to be in? It's got to be a franchise or just any film? Like, if it could be a one-off film?
It could be a franchise. It could be a film. Keep in mind that, the new Leprechaun is in production, so you never know.
There's still a chance. A movie that I really enjoyed and I think I would have had a lot of fun doing was, I don't even know if you saw it. I'm sure you have. Have you seen Dee Snider's Strangeland? Yes. I would have loved to have been in that film.
And why?
I like that whole culture, the piercings, the tattoo guys, and the music scene. And I know, that would have been me, to hang out with Dee Snider from Twisted Sister, and just heavily having him torture. There's a lot of torture in that movie with piercings and stuff like that. So I find that interesting. It would have been cool to me. If I can't be in a Friday the 13th, I guess.
Growing up a horror fan didn't affect you in any way?
No, not whatsoever. Totally normal.
Got one of y'all who gets propositioned by folks in the alleyway for blowjobs. They're one who just wants to be in a sadomasochism. Okay. Cool, man. Well, God, we've been at this for about an hour and a half now. I just wanted to say, thanks. I appreciate you guys taking some time to chit chat. To any of our listeners out there, one of the goals with Deathlocker is to randomly get in horror fans, people from the different Facebook forums, not just the print community, but we're going to be reaching out to folks who are in, the horror toys, who are in specific like Clive Barker groups, Stephen King book groups, just to kind of get a good diversity of stuff. And hopefully Mike and Frank will join us again sometime.
I have all of those things you just named.
We can have a My Little Pony, horror retrospective.
Right. We gotta get your thing in there every once in a while.
Nice.
Something for everyone.
Cool. Well, I appreciate you guys taking some time. And that's it from the Deathlocker podcast, straight from Nerdlocker World Headquarters.